Hello, I'm in a very attractive Cotswold village. There's a shallow river running through the middle of it, grassy banks either side, stone footbridges that cross the river, and there's 5 visitor attractions. There's restaurants, pubs and cosy cafes. This is one of the most visited villages in the Cotswolds. Where am I? Yes, I'm in Bourton-on-the-Water. Here along the High Street is the River Windrush, a tributary of the River Thames which flows through London. As you can see from the wall banks, this was not the natural course of the river. It was channelled through the village hundreds of years ago to power 2 water mills. This is Mill Bridge, and across the other side of the bridge is a mill building. It's had a change of use and is home to a very enjoyable motor museum. Do not be deceived by outward appearances. Inside there are 7 galleries packed full of historic cars and other motoring memorabilia. It's also home to a small yellow car called Brum that has starred in all sorts of adventures on BBC TV and is a great favourite with children. This is the Cotswold Perfumery, an international business that is deceptive in its size. Behind the quaint little shop are the laboratories and the factory. Some of the fragrances are on sale in the shop. However, most of their perfumes are specially commissioned by companies selling under their own brand names across the world. The Queen has even commissioned a special perfume from here. However, the recipe is a closely guarded secret. If you are a model railway enthusiast, you'll have to visit this exhibition and you'll be sure to get model railway layout envy. At the other end of the village is the model village in the garden of the old New Inn. The village is a very clever reconstruction of the actual village of Bourton-on-the-Water, from the motor museum to the inn. You can walk across the mini stone bridges over the river and walk past the shops 1/9 the size of the actual ones you walked past earlier. Visitors are amazed at the attention to detail, including the views when they look through the windows of the churches. Garden lawns, plants and trees are carefully managed by the garden team, and there's even a model of the model of the model village. Just a little further down the road is Birdland Park and Gardens, a great day out for all the family. It's home to over 500 birds, such as penguins, flamingos, cranes and pelicans, to lots of others with homes in the numerous aviaries around the site. It plays a vital role in conservation through breeding species at risk of extinction, such as the king and Humboldt penguins. You can even chat to a keeper and get closer to some of the feathered residents. I even spotted a couple of very cute, newly born flamingo chicks. Short distance away from the centre of Bourton-on-the-Water is an ancient landscape called Salmonsbury at Greystones Farm Nature Reserve. It's been carefully restored and looked after by the Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust. Archaeologists reckon people have been using this site for over 5,500 years. There's evidence of a Neolithic causewayed enclosure with a ceremonial meeting place for prehistoric nomadic people to meet and trade. Much later, there were the Bronze Age farmers, then the Iron Age, when a hill fort was established. Inside the ramparts, there was evidence of a large number of thatched round houses, and this is a reconstruction much used for educational visits. There are also storage pits, pottery, jewellery, and where a hoard of iron currency bars were unearthed. Besides the ancient history, wildlife is encouraged, and there are a variety of country walks enjoyed by lovers of nature. Just about a mile away are the twin villages of Upper and Lower Slaughter, and that's where we're heading now. It sounds as though these villages have been named because of a terrible massacre that took place here. But no, the name comes from Old English slotra, which means muddy place. The first of the 2 villages we're going to look at is Lower Slaughter. This is one of the prettiest villages in the North Cotswolds, with a striking red brick mill that everyone wants to photograph. I'll tell you a bit more about that a little later on. This is the Slaughter Brook, otherwise known as the River Eye, which runs through the middle of the village. On the other side of the road at this point is the Lower Slaughter Manor House, built in 1656 by Valentine Strong, a well-known Cotswold master stonemason whose sons were specially chosen by Sir Christopher Wren for the building of St Paul's Cathedral after the Great Fire of London. You can just make out the original house, but over the years it's been extended and modified, and the Slaughters Manor is now a luxury country house hotel. It's built of the lovely honey-coloured limestone from local quarries. Generations of the Whitmore family had lived here, having owned and managed the estate for 353 years, before selling it in 1964. The pretty Victorian church next to the Manor House was built to replace the 13th century church and was paid for by Charles Chaplain Whitmore. Great celebrations were laid on after the dedication by the Bishop of Gloucester. Dinner was provided for the villagers in a barn, while the bishop and important visitors enjoyed lunch at the Manor House. The village hall, completed in 1887 to celebrate Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, was a community effort built by local craftsmen using local materials on land donated by Charles Algernon Whitmore. He contributed to the building fund, whilst the villagers raised the rest through gifts and profits from bazaars and concerts. Next door was the schoolroom, built by Charles Chaplain Whitmore, the man who paid for the building of the church. The school closed in 1931 and has since been converted to a private house. Opposite is the village square, with a stone gable water fountain on the grass, bringing clean water into the village from springs on the hillside. It's dated 1875 with the initials CSW. Mains water didn't arrive into the village until as late as 1948. Before the drinking fountain was erected, weak beer was drunk, as it was safer than water. There's a converted malt house opposite the mill. It's now a private house, but that would have been where grain, usually barley, was converted to malt for the brewing of the beer. The Cornmill was originally part of the manorial estate, originally water-powered, then steam-powered. In late Victorian times, it was run as a private business. It became a bakery, village store and post office. And there's a lovely story that the baker would pop the villagers' meat for their Sunday lunches into the hot ovens before church. It must have been a great sight after church to see the people in their Sunday best chatting to one another as they carried their cooked joints home with them for their midday meal. In the early 1990s, the mill was taken over and became the museum and tourist shop that we see today. Besides the mill is the Warden's Way, a very pleasant footpath that takes you through fields to Upper Slaughter. And on my way, I passed a flock of sheep. The sheep had recently been shorn. In the Middle Ages, the Cotswolds became very prosperous from the wool trade. The famous wool sack in the House of Lords in Parliament represented the importance of wool to the economy in former times. Now, farmers rear these sheep for meat, with wool being a very minor sideline. This is a lovely view of the Lords of the Manor Hotel. Originally, it was a 17th century private house that has been extended and modified. In 1808, the house was inherited by the Reverend Francis Witts, author of the Diary of a Country Parson, and it became his rectory. He was rector of this historic church for 46 years and loved the village. He acquired the manorial rights when they became available to become Lord of the Manor. The house was converted to a hotel in 1972 and is now rated as one of the top 200 hotels in the country. This is the square of houses that Edwin Lutyens, considered by many to be the best architect of the 20th century, restored in 1906. This must have been a tremendous coup because the extent and range of his work was enormous. He famously worked with Gertrude Jekyll on designing houses and gardens that regularly featured in Country Life magazine. His most prestigious project was designing New Delhi in India. After the First World War, he was appointed to the Imperial War Graves Commission, designing stones of remembrance, including the cenotaph in London. This brings me on to the fact that Upper Slaughter is a rare village that has no war memorial because no men were lost in either World War I or World War II. It's just one of 14 doubly thankful villages. There's something rather appealing about messing about by water. This is the Slaughter Brook mentioned earlier. The old ford allowed horse-drawn carts and other farm vehicles to pass through at a shallow part. and notice the bridge for pedestrians and pack horses alongside the ford. I've shown you a few places to visit, as well as some of the hidden gems in the stunning landscape of the Cotswolds, an area of outstanding natural beauty where time seems to have stood still for years. If you look very carefully, you can just see the distinctive stone roofs of the cottages of Upper Slaughter nestling amongst the trees, and you may be able to pick out the church spire in Lower Slaughter in the valley below. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If so, do give it the thumbs up. If you want to hear about more places in this region, do consider subscribing to this channel. So far there are videos about Cheltenham, Tewkesbury and Cirencester to watch in the series on Gloucestershire. I'm Anne Bartlett, Blue Badge Tour Guide, and my website is www.touringexplore.com.